वनचारी यमुनातिरावनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी जय गोपी जनवल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजन यमुनातिरावनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद हिज डिवाइन ग्रेस एसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम कैंटो 6 चैप्टर 5 टेक्स्ट 15। तत्संग भ्रंशितैश्वर्यम् संस्रन्तं कुभार्यवत् तद्गतेरबुध्यस्येह किमसत्कर्मभिर्भवेत्। तत्संगभ्रंशितैश्वर्यम् संस्रन्तं कुभार्यवत् संस्रन्तं कुभार्यवत् तद्गतेरबुद्धस्येह किमसत्कर्मभिर्भवेत्। ladies, please. Tatsanga, by association with the prostitute of intelligence. Bhramshita, taken away. Aishwaryam, the opulence of independence. Samsarantam, undergoing the material way of life. Kubharyavat, exactly like a person who has a polluted wife. Tadgati, the movements of the polluted intelligence. Abudhasya, of one who does not know. Iha, in this world. Kim asat karma bhir bhavet, what can be the benefit of performing temporary fruitive activities? Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Narada Muni had also spoken of a man who was the husband of the prostitute. The Haryashvas understood this as follows. If one becomes the husband of a prostitute, he loses all independence. Similarly, if a living entity has polluted intelligence, he prolongs his materialistic life. Frustrated by material nature, he must follow the movements of the intelligence, which brings various conditions of happiness and distress. If one performs fruitive activities under such conditions, what will be the benefit? Purport. Polluted intelligence has been compared to a prostitute. One who has not purified his intelligence is said to be controlled by that prostitute. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, text 41, Vyavasayatmika buddhir ekeha kurunandana. Those who are actually serious are conducted by one kind of intelligence, namely intelligence in Krishna consciousness. Bahushakha hi anantascha buddhayo vyavasayinam. One who is not fixed in proper intelligence discovers many modes of life. Thus, involved in material activities, he is exposed to the different modes of material nature and subjected to varieties of so-called happiness and distress. If a man becomes the husband of a prostitute, he cannot be happy. And similarly, one who follows the dictations of material intelligence and material consciousness will never be happy. One must judiciously understand the activities of material nature. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, text 27, Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashah ahankara vimudhatma kartaham iti manyate. The bewildered spirit soul, under the influence of the three modes of material nature, thinks himself to be the doer of activities which are in actuality carried out by nature. Although one follows the dictations of material nature, he happily thinks himself the master or husband of material nature. Scientists, for example, try to be the masters of material nature life after life, not caring to understand the Supreme Person, under whose direction everything within this material world is moving. Trying to be the masters of material nature, they are imitation gods who declare to the public that scientific advancement will one day be able to avoid the so-called control of God. In fact, however, the living being, unable to control the rulings of God, is forced to associate with the prostitute of polluted intelligence and accept various material bodies. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, text 22, Purusha prakritisto hi bhungte prakritijan gunan karanam guna sangasya sadasadyoni janmasu. The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil amongst various species. If one fully engages in temporary fruitive activities and does not solve his real problem, what profit will he gain? Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. The Haryashvas are very intelligent, and they are understanding Narada Muni's allegory. Specifically here, it's very instructive as to how following a polluted intelligence is detrimental to one's progressive life. If we analyze what intelligence means in the first place, then it gives a clue as to what he's talking about is polluted intelligence. Generally, when we say intelligence, there are certain characteristics of a person who's intelligent. One is that they have an ability to discern from complexity certain aspects of simplicity. Right? An intelligent person can cut through all the complexities of things to see the simplicity of certain things. This is from a technical side. In general, intelligence means the ability to discern between what is favorable and what is unfavorable to me. It is said, for example, that children are not very intelligent in the sense that in the beginning, everything goes into the mouth to discern what is this. They can't distinguish between food, a shoe, a piece of metal. Everything has to go to the mouth, because from the sense of touch with the tongue, they can say, whatever it might be. So the ability to discern over life comes from the values that one carries in life. And this is something that is trained. Intelligence can be trained, right? As a child grows up, or we have grown up with certain values of life, right? About, let's say, honesty or truthfulness or cleanliness or accepting someone else for who they are. These are all values. And if we grew up with nothing but spite and severe distinctions, oh, they are this color, they are of this race, they are of that country, our values are based on those teachings or indoctrination, and we evaluate everyone according to those values. And so our intelligence works on that basis. For example, if stealing was a value that we picked up and that was okay, or there was nothing wrong with stealing someone else's things, then our intelligence works in such a way that it tells us there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong if you want to take someone else's. What's wrong? So that's how the intelligence functions. It's based on the basis of what's the value that's within our consciousness. So it's very important that from the beginning of our lives, or in a child's life, certain values are inculcated by the family, by the culture, by the environment that they are in, certain values, so that as the child grows up into a young man or a young woman, Those values will drive their behaviors. And that is how the intelligence is cultured in a particular way. As practicing devotees or spiritualists, we imbibe a certain value system from Srila Prabhupada's books and teachings, so that our intelligence is now cultured, or by the process of Krishna consciousness, it's cultured in a particular sort of way. The values are everything belongs to Krishna, we are servants of Krishna, everything is meant for the enjoyment of Krishna, etc. So that when we come across certain things or people, etc., we know how to, our intelligence will help us discern that. Oh, this person's body looks very different, their background is very different, but there is a spirit soul within that body. This is an ant or this is a plant, but where there is a spirit soul within that. That's how intelligence starts to function. Or we see a ripe mango, and the first thought will be, let me offer this to Krishna. A very fragrant flower, a lotus coming in the pond. Oh, how nice it would be to offer to Krishna. This is how the intelligence begins to get cultured, versus let me smell it first, let me enjoy it first. This is how intelligence works. So this intelligence, when cultured, works in a way that is chaste to bringing us towards the spiritual platform. When this intelligence is not cultured, it begins to waver according to our needs, material needs. And therefore it's compared to a prostitute. One of the things about a prostitute is that she is not committed to anyone. She is only committed to a person from whom she can get money. That's the nature of prostitute. Doesn't belong to anyone. So polluted intelligence means it's not committed to a certain value. That value can change according to what is the need of the moment. So there is no value system on which that intelligence is developed. And the only value system per se is how best can I get my sense gratification. That is how polluted intelligence works. And it's to such a degree that it won't care about the consequences of one's behavior. One of the things of a trained intelligence is ants in this. One of the things about trained intelligence is, before we act out a particular desire, that intelligence will tell us the consequences of it. Hey, did you know if you do this, this is what will happen? Or if we don't know the consequence, ask someone what will happen and then act it out. Once Srila Prabhupada was asked, what is the difference between mind and intelligence? And Prabhupada, in a very simple way, said, if you're on the top of a building and you look down and you think, what would it be like to jump down? That is your mind. And then your intelligence will tell you, don't do it. It tells you the consequence. It gives you a sense of what the consequence will be by acting out that desire. And polluted intelligence is, it will tell you, you'll get sense gratification, but it will hide the real consequence from us. The real consequence of sense gratification is disease, death, old age of course, but disease, death and rebirth. And short-term and long-term suffering. Because material energy works in a particular way. It has certain consequences by engaging it in a sense gratificatory or exploitative mood. And real intelligence will warn us, no, this is not what you're supposed to do. And that real intelligence is awakened from or awakened by Scripture. Therefore, it is important to study Scripture. It is important to study Scripture with the devotees who have realizations of Scripture, so that application or movement in life becomes clearer. So the Haryesh was understood. Oh, hold on a second. Untrained intelligence is like a prostitute, not committed to anything. And the only commitment the prostitute has is for money. It doesn't matter who it is. If they can get money, that's what it is. I mean, I'm not saying anything against the profession of prostitution. There may be some good people. I don't know. We're talking about how it is, the nature of such a. Versus is sati. In Sanskrit, they say sati is a chaste wife, and asati means a prostitute. Chastity is to the goal of life. And unchaste is that there's no particular goal of life. Whatever seems good, just follow that. So here the Haryashvas understood it. Now the characteristic of chaste intelligence is in the Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 text 41. Vyavasayatmika buddhir ekeha kurunandana. Where Krishna describes that this Vyavasayatmika buddhi, this one-pointed intelligence, is that a person will perform the activities of body, mind and words, keeping in vision the ultimate goal of life. Meaning, how is this particular behavior, this particular speech, this particular thought going to help me meet the goal of my life? Now, it's not just any goal of life, the goal of life being Krishna consciousness. Then such intelligence is called single-pointed. On the other hand, Krishna says, Bahushaka, intelligence that is splayed, is such that it doesn't keep the person on track to the final goal of life. It sways the person according to that particular need of the hour. And so they never get to the ultimate goal of being Krishna conscious or developing their Krishna consciousness. That single-pointed intelligence is another word for it is commitment. Our commitment to Krishna, our commitment to the spiritual master. And that commitment is to be developed to such strength that anything that comes that deters us from that, we say no. And anything that comes to strengthen that, we don't even think about, we say yes. So that intelligence is necessary to discern what is it that I'm saying yes to and what is it that I'm saying no to. What may seem like a very good yes should perhaps be a no. And some things that we say no to should actually be a yes. In the material state, we reject things that are favorable and accept things that are unfavorable. Because sense gratification and service are diametrically opposite to each other. So what we say yes to for sense gratification is actually a no for Krishna consciousness, unless it is centered around Krishna. So the material intelligence works in this way, and spiritual intelligence is diametrically opposite. And we wouldn't know. We use the faculties of rationality, faculties of reason, etc., by which we say yes to sense gratification. But spiritual intelligence is cultivated the other way, from hearing, from Guru and Sadhus and Shastra. Very important, the distinction between spiritual intelligence and material intelligence. Material intelligence gets us nowhere. Nowhere, spiritually speaking. If in physics there is a, we say there is something called distance and displacement. If I pick an object from here and I walk around the temple room and I bring back the object right here, I've traveled this distance, but the displacement is called zero because it has not gone anywhere. Similarly, in material life, a person moves doing so many things, but at the end of the day, the displacement is zero. They haven't gone anywhere. They're still in the exactly the same circumstances. Unhappy, dissatisfied, really not gotten anywhere beyond eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So spiritual life is displacement, that there is some change. The change is from this condition of life to this condition of life. And what takes one from here to there, or from one condition to another condition, is cultured intelligence. So the Haryashvas understood, oh, vyavasayatmika buddhi. Very important. I was hearing, this is a little side note, Gauranga Prabhu, and he was explaining the advent of Lord Chaitanya. Krishna's considerations for coming as Lord Chaitanya. And he said, when I think about the Vrajvasis, this is how Krishna was contemplating apparently, that when I think about the Vrajvasis, they have this single-pointed intelligence that other than me, they did not know any other relationship. When I was in Vrindavan, their whole attention was on me. Everything was about me. From the time they woke up to the time they slept, even in their sleep, I was the only person they thought about. And that was the only one relationship that they were committed to. Then I left Vrindavan and went to Mathura. And when I left Vrindavan, still, till the end of their lives, I was the only person that they were completely absorbed in. So their intelligence, they are the vyavasayatmika buddhis. On the other hand, I'm not like that. Mine is bahushaka, because I had many relationships other than them. I had relationships in Vrindavan. When I went to Mathura and Dwaraka, I had many other relationships. So their one-pointedness in intelligence is commendable. And I should reciprocate back with them. So that's how he was considering. And so the reason that he took a renounced order of life, he continues to say, is that the Vrajvasis, they renounced everything for Krishna. They renounced their occupations, they renounced their families, their sons, their daughters, their husbands, they renounced their shyness, their chastity, everything for Krishna. So he said that they're real renunciants. So the only way to reciprocate back with them is to also be renounced. So he took up a renounced order of life to glorify the renunciation of the residents of Vrindavan. So Krishna considers Bahushakha, hi Anantascha, is that when we have more than one commitment to Krishna, and on the side something else is also happening. This is called splayed intelligence. We consider many other important. Krishna is one of the important aspects. This is not Krishna consciousness. Commitment to Krishna is the mainstay. In fact, there is nothing else. That kind of intelligence to develop is necessary, and it's done through scripture and hearing, etc., as we've been talking about. So the Haryashvas understood, if they engage themselves in other activities, then they will get distracted by materialistic intelligence that will tell them that, the other things are also very important. that they may lose their Krishna consciousness. Other things are also important within the realm of Krishna consciousness. Outside of Krishna consciousness, no. So then, what is it that makes a person not have such intelligence? He says, Prabhupada quotes this, Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha. Ahankara vimudhatma kartaham iti manyate. Maharaj was speaking about this last night. This material energy, it works in a very tricky way. The tricky way is when a person approaches the material energy to think and thinking that I can control her. Then she says, sure, of course, you're the Purusha. You can control me. And she walks along as if we're controlling her, but she's controlling us every moment. This is the illusion. The illusion that, yes, you're the controller. Why not? But she's the one who's controlling. This is like a husband who said, I am the master of my house. And I have my wife's permission to say so. This is how material energy works. Yes, you are the master, of course. But someone else is calling the shots. That is the illusion. Oh yeah, yes, you are the master. No doubt. Whatever you'd like to do. You'd like to manipulate me in this particular way? Sure, you're the master. And the person thinks, oh yeah. Ahankara vimudhatma kartaham iti manyate. I am the doer. I can do anything with this material energy. All I have to do is, bring forth my scientific knowledge, my ability to manipulate things, and look how it is getting manipulated. Yes. At the same time, look how we're getting manipulated. And we can't see that. Because the word is vimudhatma. We're bewildered. We don't understand how we're being manipulated by the material energy. For example, we think, if I manipulate certain things in this way and that way, I can get that sense gratification. Yeah, sure, come on over. And while we're pursuing that sense gratification, material energy slaps on us one consequence after the other. And we justify ourselves saying, hey, no pain, no gain. A little bit is all right. Some risk must be there for some gain. Right? If higher the risk, greater the gain. That's why people step so outside things and do risky things for that thrill. We can examine the range of things of how people step outside of the norms or the protection of intelligence to get that little thrill of doing something. Correct? We've all tried something or the other in our lives. That little risky thing for that thrill of, wow, I took some risk. So this is how material energy, she completely bewilders the intelligence of a conditioned person. So here Prabhupada writes, although one follows the dictation of the material nature, he happily thinks himself the master or husband of material nature. It's like the prostitute, since that's the connotation. Whoever comes to her, she will whisper in his ear, you're the best. He becomes very happy. Oh, yes. And the next guy, she will tell him, you're the best. You're the best. And it's bewildering because one wants to think, oh yes, I am the best. So whatever sense gratification we're pursuing, material intelligence will say, yes, you're the best. Go right ahead. This is good for you. Go on. And the material intelligence will also give us all the reasons why what we're doing is right. And one common example is, others are doing it. What's wrong with you? Right? When the spiritual master gives us an instruction, don't do something like that, the material intelligence say, but others are. Why can they do, and they do? Why me? Why not me? Or we look outside and people seem to be having a lot of fun. Oh, why can't I? The material intelligence is polluted in such a way. They're trying to be the masters of material nature. They are imitation gods who declare to the public that scientific advancement will one day be able to avoid the so-called control of God. That is that material intelligence. You are the master. You don't need a God. Come on. You can do it. So the spiritual intelligence will then cut through the layers of this wrong advice. There was a story of a king and his minister. We've heard this king and minister combination, right? Prabhupada says there's a person called Gopal Ban. Like that, in the court of Akbar, there was Birbal. So once Akbar and Birbal had a debate, um, Birbal had mentioned that, oh my dear emperor, there is no man in this land who doesn't listen to his wife. Every man listens to his wife. Oh, Akbar said, no, 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 come on. It's not like that. There must be at least one man who doesn't listen to his wife. And Birbal said, no, no, there is no such man. So then they had a debate. So Akbar said, no, you have to prove this to me. I'm very sure there exists at least one man. So Birbal said, I'll prove it to you. So what he got an announcement made throughout the land that all married men should show up at the royal court on such and such day, such and such time. So because it was a royal decree, they all had to show up. And Birbal had two doors side by side. And on top of one door was written, stand here if you listen to your wife. And the other door on top said, stand here if you don't listen to your wife. And as Birbal had predicted, one after the other, all the men lined up again right in front of the first door. And it was like Akbar, the king, was really surprised. He said, really? Birbal said, I told you. Everyone is like that. And there was this long line of men standing in front of this first door. After a while, there was one man who came and stood in front of the other door. And the emperor became really happy. He said, see, I told you, there must exist at least one man. Birbal said, no, 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 I don't believe it. He said, what do you mean you don't believe it? See, this guy standing in front of the door that says, stand here if you don't listen to your wife. And Birbal said, no, let's go ask him. So they went up to the man and said, excuse me, sir, why are you standing here? Do you know you're standing in front of this door? Why are you standing here? He said, well, I set out because it was a royal decree. And when I was leaving home, my wife told me, everyone will be standing in front of the front door and there'll be a long line. Don't waste your time. Just stand in front of the second door and come back home quickly. So I'm standing here. So this intelligence, material intelligence, is the asati, the polluted intelligence that convinces us that the path of sense gratification is the right path. That the path of short-term sense enjoyment, short-term benefits are more valuable than the long-term values by which we live. Because spiritual life is all about long-term. Not that there is nothing beneficial in the short term, but the benefits of short-term life are not the way we are looking for. And materialistic life is all about short-term benefits. Nobody cares about long-term. The moment you say long-term, people lose interest. Oh, really? I have to wait for something? What can I get now? A spiritual life is all about long-term benefits. Long-term means not just this life, but life after life benefits. So the spiritual intelligence will say, hold on, don't go for the short-term benefits, think long-term. Spiritual life is a long run, think long-term. And material life will say, you never know. You never know whether you're going to live long or not. Enjoy right now. Charvak Muni explained, right? Rinam kritva ghritam pibed. That even if you have to beg, borrow, and steal, fine. Get some money, buy ghee, and eat nicely with ghee. Rinam kritva ghritam pibed. Ghritam is ghee. So you can beg, borrow, steal, get ghee, and enjoy your food. He says, Bhasmi bhutasya dehasya kim punaragatah. Anyway, life is ending and your body is going to become ash. So might as well enjoy. That's the long-term plan. You're going to become ash. So material intelligence pegs us in the short term, and spiritual intelligence drives us for the long term. So Prabhupada writes, however, the living being, unable to control the rulings of God, is forced to associate with the prostitute of polluted intelligence and accept various material bodies. That's the consequence of short-term pursuits. More material bodies. And then he says, Purusha prakriti hi bhunkte prakriti jan gunan. Beautiful verse. In the Bhagavad Gita, and interestingly, this is the chapter 13, which is in the Jnana section of Bhagavad Gita, and it sharpens that intelligence of how the material energy and we need to interact. It says, Purusha prakriti. Purusha is the living entity who thinks of himself as the controller. Prakriti is situated in the material energy. Bhunkte. Bhunkte is enjoying. Prakriti jan gunan. Prakriti ja means that which is born out of material nature. And what is that? Gunan, the three modes. Karanam gunasangasya. Gunasanga is now he associates with the material modes of nature so intimately. And that is the cause of sadasad yoni janmashu. He gets his share of short-term benefits and long-term consequences by playing around with material nature. Material nature is not for playing around with. It is for staying away from. And the way we stay away from the consequences of the modes of nature is to engage the material energy in Krishna's service, or to approach the material energy in a mood of service to Krishna. Then the material energy doesn't fight back. It aids us. But the moment we approach material energy with an exploitative mentality, bites back and bites hard. So that's any questions, comments? And then anyway, at the end of it, he says, if one fully engages in temporary fruitive activities and does not solve this real problem, what profit will he gain? That's the refrain in all these slokas. Kim asat karma bhir bhavet.
Prabhuji, you were describing about I forgot what you call it, displacement something.
Displacement.
Displacement. And so someone moves around, but the displacement is zero. And so you were describing how entities are doing so many activities, but then they're still unhappy, etc. So also, we seem like this. It seems like this in Christian consciousness also, where we are doing so much to try to advance ourselves in Christian consciousness, but displacement is zero. Sometimes we feel like that. I'm sure it's like that around. I stay in brahmacharya ashrams, and I've seen brahmacharya ashrams across the world, and I noticed that a lot amongst the brahmacharya ashram also, where so a lot of services are going on, chanting is going on, hearing is going on, but displacement is zero. We are unhappy. So I guess my question is, why does that? Well, my question really is that if we're unhappy, then we will use our intelligence to say, well, okay, what is it that I'm doing wrong by which I'm not actually experiencing the happiness? That's how our intelligence will start to work. Something must be,
Sure.
because we have faith that Christian consciousness is true. So I must be doing something wrong, or something's missing, perhaps, by which I'm not able to get that happiness. But then my question comes up that when our intelligence starts working in that way, and even when we're inquiring, so not unaided, but aided intelligence also, when it may be necessary to actually make adjustments in what we're doing, there's a reluctance to do so, or we get advised against that because it's just a matter of time. Don't worry, just a matter of just keep on going with the same thing, and eventually you'll just wake up in Krishna consciousness one fine day. But in fact, it may be necessary that there needs to be things that need to be adjusted in our application, and so on. But then we're afraid to do that because for the reasons which I've mentioned. And so we go on kind of in this unhappy condition, thinking that maybe one day I'll become happy. And it's not happening, and so many years pass by, it doesn't happen.
Correct.
So how are we supposed to judge what is the right sort of action? Or how do we know when it's really safe that, yeah, I need to actually adjust what I'm doing if I'm going to really progress, if there's really going to be some displacement in my consciousness without it being like a deviation or
Sure.
unwarranted and so on.
What is action in inaction and what is inaction in action is bewildering even to the greatly learned persons. Thankfully, in the process of Krishna consciousness, we don't have to make all of those considerations on our own. And as along with the faith that Krishna consciousness is the right thing, a little slower comes the faith that the superior guidance is also for my benefit. It's easier to accept the broader context of, yeah, Krishna consciousness is the right thing. But within that fabric, how to guide our lives through the difficulties or whatever dissatisfactions, that takes longer because we're still culturing our uh, independent mindedness to some degree. Not always the case, some degree. Uh, and where the dissatisfaction is coming from is usually not easily discernible. Some people, while within this realm of Krishna consciousness, may be dissatisfied for a whole set of material reasons. Maybe, possible, right? They can also be dissatisfied genuinely, spiritually speaking, in the sense they have a better awareness of their nature or calling, etc., and they try to fit in. And they want to know where that can happen or how that can happen. But as long as there is higher guidance, and genuinely we take that guidance, that higher persons can discern on the basis of the relationship with us what aspect of it or what proportion of it is coming from the previous samskara, if you will, versus a genuinely spiritual intelligence of that's the right fit. Um, that's one. Second is we still have a tendency to look at ourselves in comparison to others. It is there. And somehow we try to get a sense of, oh, that will be similar to me, my situation, and I like that for me. Um, Also, even within devotional service, we still look for some short term benefits. There's nothing wrong. I mean, there's no denying it. We are looking for short term because still that what that long term may mean is unclear. Um, if as devotees we learn that, okay, I may not be fully aware of the long term picture, but just within what I am doing, if I can draw out a sense of satisfaction and then pray to Krishna to guide me through spiritual master and sadhus in a way that satisfies whatever is within the heart. The real issue, not the manifest issue. Sometimes what manifests and what the real issue may be different. And we wait for Krishna to show us. Meanwhile, uh, accepting or what we say, tolerating minimally the dissatisfactions of this. Tate anukampam susamikshamano. That is the, yeah, because there's so much that I don't know. What is coming up as I'm chanting Hare Krishna and serving the devotees with the churning that is happening? I don't know what all is coming up. I don't have the spiritual intelligence to discern everything to say, oh, this is from that is from there, this is from. I don't have that. And discernment, we were speaking to someone the other day, I forget. Discernment, when we are in a position of darkness, right? We can't discern. If we're in a room and all the lights are turned off, we can't discern how the room is laid out, what's where. We can't. But in light, our discernment is stronger. So sometimes just giving it a little time in the sense that move towards the light so you can see things better. One of the things that I guess I've been trained in, or at least it's been hit many times into my head, is don't make serious decisions when you're at a low. Make all the serious decisions only when there is some light in life or enlightenment in life. The tendency is to change circumstances, change situation, especially when we're feeling low. Because when we're feeling high, it doesn't matter, right? For example, Janmashtami fasting or something. We're in the middle of a wonderful roaring kirtan, or we're doing some service, and we're feeling a high. At that time, we don't think, "Oh, I think I should change the circumstance." It is when we are low then we start thinking, "Oh, what can I do to change it?" So significant decisions made at that time generally bring us back into the repetition of the same problem, because we are conditioned to doing certain things when we experience that low. So we are encouraged to come towards the light and see things perhaps differently from there on. So that dhairya is a very formidable, necessary uh, feature. Sometimes that's why we are advised, don't make any change right now, just let things be. And in some cases, changes happen. Oh, change this or change that. But it's not easy. I mean, that was the point. Because there is both the some amount of light and some amount of darkness. They exist proportionately. And so, always a good decision would be to to align on the side of enlightenment. I'm using the word enlightenment, just that Krishna Surya Sama, and then look at things. They look differently from Maya Haya Andhakara. The Andhakara is that we can't discern what amount of it is the push or the urge from that Vimudhatma stage, and what amount of decision making is coming from uh, the servant of Krishna state. It's difficult. Sometimes they both look very similar. So we need a source outside of ourselves to help us discern it. I mean, it doesn't mean that we don't know on our own. Sometimes we don't know. Sometimes we do, and we always refer to. Is that okay? Bhakta Luke.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. I had one question following up on that discussion. If you could please clarify, what is it you meant when we should not make decisions at a low? Could you please explain more? I didn't
When
understand
at a
completely.
low, when not making serious decisions at a low, means that low is in terms of consciousness. That low is when uh, somewhere the consideration will be on the sense of I and mine. Because we can't say that we are relieved of the I and mine yet. For example, each one of us has a threshold of tolerance. Some are very tolerant, some are not at all tolerant. And even among those who are very tolerant, there are degrees of it. So when we talk of the residents of Vrindavan, which is like wherever they are, their tolerance is like the extreme. They're able to tolerate the distresses Krishna has put them in, and they won't complain. I'm just picking tolerance for the moment, okay? They won't complain. Whatever Krishna puts them through, they will not complain. They will happily do it for Krishna. Like the Krishna stealing the garments of the gopis, and Krishna promising and never coming back. I mean, this is way out there. That was Himanshu's question the other day. What does it mean, even if there are reasons for the relationship to break? Way out there. And they have nothing, not only tolerance, but they're happily doing it for Krishna's pleasure. And each one of us has a threshold. That threshold, how do you know what that threshold is? At that threshold is where our bodily identification lies. Beyond which, we will go right back to I and mine. Okay? With me so far? At that threshold is our bodily identification. When pushed beyond, we will regress to the I and mine concept. So here's a story. There's a monkey and it has its little baby. You've heard me say this in the past. Okay. And there was a flood in the village. Okay. So the baby was running around, the mother was okay. When the flood water started rising above her ankles, she picked up the baby and put to her stomach. Then the water level was rising even further. Came up to her stomach. So she took the baby and put on her shoulder. Then the water level was rising even further. So she put the baby on her head. Then the water level rose beyond her nose. She dropped the baby, jumped onto the tree, and saved herself. So that was the threshold. So when we are pushed to certain things, we learn to tolerate. Prabhuji, don't do this. Or do this. All right. And you push that even further. Don't do that. Oh. And the spiritual master, let's say, pushes you beyond that. Then you say, whoa, hold on a second here. That, wherever is that threshold is where the I and mine concept is lying. And as we develop our Krishna consciousness, we push that threshold further and further to such a degree that it dissolves. So the false ego is dissolved. Correct? So that threshold level is where things will, when Krishna will touch that. So our practice in Krishna consciousness is to allow Krishna to touch that area, push us beyond, and help us become, oh my dear Krishna, whatever you say. So until then, we tolerate. We're in Chicago. What's the problem? We'll put on a jacket. That's our tolerance. Somewhere else, something else will say, oh, today we're fasting. Oh, okay. Today there is only burritos for lunch. Really, that's fine. Whatever, I'm joking. But the point is, we have some room for tolerating things. And as we grow in our Krishna consciousness, that room becomes bigger. But Krishna will want to go beyond that. And at that point where Krishna touches something, because of bodily concept, we will find that low. And that's not the point to make drastic decisions. You understand? That's the point for coming to Guru. Shishyasteham sadhimam tvam prapannam. It's that limit. Arjuna was pushed to that limit. Like, kill your family. Right there. Do it. Oh. And we all have that sensitive touch points where Krishna will take us to.
Thank you.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I had another question.
Okay.
You mentioned values that we're receiving from Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra.
Yeah.
Is there ever an appropriate circumstance in which one would compromise those values, or are those meant to be upheld in all circumstances?
Well, if those values have to be compromised, one should understand what the consequences are. And proper discussion with the spiritual master and sadhus to understand if a principle is being compromised, a value is being compromised, what is the other value that is replacing it? There should be a higher value that replaces the value one is giving up. And unless there is a higher spiritual value replacing it, when we violate it, there are certain consequences for it. That for us, the value that guides us is the missionary spirit of Lord Chaitanya and Srila Prabhupada telling us anyone and everyone. That's the value that guides us. So if we are going to give up on a particular value, then there should be a higher value that replaces it. For example, I'm afraid to say it because it gets usually misapplied, but I'll say it anyway, right? The value of always being truthful. Now, Sanatan and Rupa Goswamis, they sent a message to the Qazi or Nawab saying, we're indisposed, not well. And they were sitting with the Brahmanas and studying Bhagvatam. So this value was given up, but it was replaced by a higher value that was authorized. Right? Now it gets misapplied in so many ways. People don't go to work, and they somehow rationalize it. Oh, Rupa and Sanatan did it. Why can't I? But Rupa and Sanatan also did their jobs or whatever they did so thoroughly well that the Nawab never had to even think about his country. He was busy conquering. Everything's taken care of very nicely. He doesn't have to check how are they doing. It's like that. So anyway, it gets misapplied sometimes, but that's a value. The value of a devotee is Satyasara. Anyone else? Shravan?
Thank you for the class, Prabhuji. I have a confusion, if you can help me out to understand the situation. You're mentioning the point we have to dissolve our false ego. And I'm trying to understand the ISKCON movement is encouraging us to do a preaching activity. At the same time, there is dissolving on false ego. But without dissolving false ego, how our activities are successful in preaching? Could you please explain me? I'm finding a little difficulty to understand in that thin line.
I'm not seeing a connection, but your question is, I said that we have to dissolve our false ego.
False ego.
And the ISKCON movement is encouraging us to preach.
What I understood of my experience till now, I could be completely wrong also.
Okay.
The ISKCON movement is a preaching movement.
Uh-huh.
Preaching movement. At the same time, and the goal of life is also to dissolve false ego.
So is the goal preaching or dissolving false ego? Is that the question?
How do both go together?
Oh, how both go
Both
together?
together with a balanced way, and the
Oh, okay. I did not say that we have to dissolve our false ego. I said that at some stage, our false ego gets dissolved. It's used in passive voice because we are not the ones dissolving our false ego. We don't have that ability. Krishna dissolves that false ego. Hmm? When Krishna decides, he removes that false ego. False ego is necessary to survive in this world. Who was the who gave class Rajaputra Chiranjeeva? Dinabandhu Prabhu. You heard this. I'm going to give a little long-winded, but sort of hopefully things will fall in place. Dinabandhu Prabhu is narrating a Prabhupada story. Prabhupada, one lecturer says, there's a saintly person who went through a village and he started blessing the different people he met. Rajaputra Chiranjeeva. He met a prince and he told him, live a very long life. Muniputra Mahajiva. You should die immediately. To a butcher, he said, Mahajiva Mahamara. Don't live, don't die. And to a devotee, he said, Jivova Amarova. It doesn't matter whether you're dead or alive. Right? The reason is to survive in this material world, one needs false ego. Otherwise, he would have this realization that I'm a part and parcel of Krishna and I'm in an artificial place. Right? So to adjust with artificiality is very difficult. A devotee or a person who doesn't have false ego, they want the real thing. They don't want artificial things. They want real relationships. They want real flowers, real fragrance, real things. But all if a person is eating is with canned food, artificial things, artificial intelligence. Without false ego, it doesn't allow you to accept all of that. So the false ego allows us to accept this body, which is inert and dead, as very alive, very useful, and the place for all the sense gratification to reside in. So that's why false ego is such an important aspect in this material world. And the whole point of Krishna consciousness is to learn to find our way out of it. And so the main teaching from day one, if anyone heard Prabhupada, the first lesson is, you're a servant of Krishna. You're not this body, you're a servant of Krishna. This is the antidote for false ego. So the preaching movement is that we understand it, and to whatever degree possible, to whatever capacity Krishna has given us, invested in us, to that degree help others to understand this point. That we are not this body, we are servants of Krishna. Which is the real ego state. Tarak, so far with me? So real ego, false ego. Real ego is we are servants of Krishna, false ego is I am this body, I am the enjoyer. So preaching movement and dissolving of false ego, they go together like the hand in glove. We can't tell others, you're not this body, when we ourselves are severely bodily identified. Correct? But we can tell others to whatever degree we have some freedom from bodily feature. We can say, on Janmashtami days, I can tell you that I don't feel like I am this body because I am able to fast the whole day. But the day after Janmashtami, when we offer kachoris to Prabhupada, I cannot fast at that. You understand? So we can only share to the degree of our realization. So preaching means we on the basis of our understanding from Prabhupada's teachings, we share with others to also help them see that truth. So preaching is a false ego-free service. to the degree that we are free from that false ego. In Rishabh Dev's teaching, that false ego free state is discussed, where he says, the second line is Vimanyava Suhrada Sadhavoye. What's the first two lines? Do you remember? Fifth chapter, when he describes the qualities of Mahatma Samach. Oh, something. What is that? Mahat Sevam Dwar Mahor Vimuktes. That by serving the great souls, it opens the door for, he says, Vimuktes, which means a position of free of false ego. And Yoshitam Sangi Sangam. But if you serve the persons in full false ego, that's where we go. It says, Prashantaste Samachittaha Vimanyava Sadhavo Suhrada Sadhavoye. And in that word Vimanyava, Prabhupada beautifully explains. Vimanyava means free of anger. And that free of anger is, he says, that when you preach to someone and they yell back at you, you don't get angry at them. This is Vimanyava, free of false ego. This is the nature of a person who's preaching. So we are asked to go out and speak to the people, play. But what will we say if we ourselves are not practicing properly? What can we say?
That's the second question.
What to say?
If we don't practice, what we can preach?
If we don't practice, what we can preach? Correct. Therefore, we should practice.
And every individual has a certain way of inspiration to connect to Krishna.
Sure.
But how the help will be provided that a person is encouraged to connect in that direction that will enrich his relation towards Krishna. It's a custom standard is going on, but every individual entity has a individual connection in the beginning until it comes to absolute level. But how the encouragement to follow those elements that are encouraging his connection towards process.
So, to be a person like that, one should recognize one's own limitations first, and to whatever degree Krishna has given us some realization about Krishna consciousness. We know something, right? We can say, I love this process. Last night Maharaj was saying, I like the way he said, oh, you do any questions? No questions. Right? They said, all right, then get the clipper and shave everyone up. And the point he said was, that was the funny part, but the real point he said was, I have found Krishna consciousness to be the best thing for me. And so I'm speaking about it. If you have seen and experienced something better, tell me. I'm always looking for something better. Right? So tell me. So whatever degree of realization we have, that's all we can say. We can't say more than that. We shouldn't say more than that. Or we can say something, we can talk about, the love, the Vrajvasis. I have no idea what that means, but I've heard like that, and that's okay. We can say, I don't have realization of it, but I have appreciation for it. So here's what I know. Here's what I have understood. And I'm not the ultimate person here. I've understood only this much. And people appreciate that. Oh, okay. Like Prabhupada said, in a school, you have a first grade teacher, you have a fifth grade teacher, and you have a PhD teacher. They are all speaking the same things, just the degree of realization is different. So we may be kindergarten, that's fine. But at kindergarten level, we can speak, we should speak something. You want to add to it?
Question because the way I was understanding is, I could be wrong. That's fine.
I don't know. He didn't say yes or no.
The question seems to be like, how do we balance that? When we come to Krishna consciousness, there's something that has drawn us toward Krishna consciousness. On the one hand, and that's what's encouraging us to. Then on the other hand, when you get into the society, there's kind of a certain standard of what it means to be a devotee, a certain image. And sometimes the image may at least appear to be somewhat different than what has drawn me forward towards Krishna consciousness. So then how do we make a balance within the society of devotees between what
That's
is
your question.
inspiring me
Oh wow, thank you.
and then the image of what it means to be like a properly situated devotee, which may not always look like what's inspiring your
Oh, then why didn't you say? You just made me talk a lot. You're big kind. You're just kind soul. Um, it's important to understand where that image is coming from. Is it an image that we've understood to be, or is an image that says in Prabhupada's teachings, this is what is the standard of a devotee? There is a standard of a devotee, sure. But there is also Kanishta, Madhyama, Uttama, and then there are characteristics within each, and we may have some of this, some of that, and we try to find out where we are at and how to practice Krishna consciousness there. For example, if we tell the devotees who are guiding us, from tomorrow I will chant like Bhakti Siddhanta 192 rounds, what advice do you think we'll get? Shravan?
Understanding that he has a desire, how to encourage his desire
Correct.
is
But what answer
missing.
do you think you'll get first?
What was it?
What answer do you think that devotee will get first?
Begin with certain rounds and then go forward slow by slow.
So first they will say,
my expectation.
correct. So first they will say is very nice, right? Because you're expressing a desire to chant like Bhakti Siddhanta. Very nice. Second is, can you chant all your 16 rounds for the next so many months in a particular way? And while you're chanting your 16, how are you doing the other areas of your life? Because sometimes Prabhupada spoke this way and Prabhupada spoke that way too. There was one devotee who used to sit on a tree and chant 100 rounds a day. And all the devotees in Mayapur were like, wow, Prabhupada, what an amazing person. Prabhupada didn't even look at him. He said, what service he has done today? No service. What is the use of all this? And he also glorified Haridas Thakur and Bhaktisiddhanta chanting. So the persons who are helping us can help us see what is the reason we are impelled to chanting like Bhaktisiddhanta. Understand? There are the hidden motivators. You're with me? Okay. There is always a hidden motivation that we are not aware of, perhaps. Or we may be aware of but can't fully discern it. So it needs the help of a senior devotee or devotees, the spiritual master, to help us cut beyond the hidden motivators and have the real motivators. The real motivation is, I have a taste for chanting. So that's encouraged. The real part is encouraged, and the artificial aspect is slowly set aside. Gently, however it's done, it's set aside.
So it's our initiative to
Hold on, one more thing. And also we shouldn't think that I'm such a unique devotee that I don't fit into Rupa Goswami's map of Kanishta, Madhyama and Uttama. Rupa Goswami has already covered it for us. You understand? We are not such a unique devotee. We are unique in our own way, but we are not so unique that Rupa Goswami hasn't covered it for us. It's there. Right? Whether we are a Kanishta or a Madhyama or Uttama, it's there in Rupa Goswami's map. The nectar of devotion. And we try to find where we are at with the help of the spiritual master and the sadhus. And how to practice Krishna consciousness where we are at without taking on more than our qualification or eligibility and without doing less than our qualification or eligibility. You understand? For example, a person who's very new to the temple and they say, I can't wake up for Mangalarti. We say it's alright. But one who's steady in devotional service, they say, I can't wake up for Mangalarti. We say, wow, what do you mean? Come on, you should. Unless there is something else happened the previous night, we say, come on, you should. You should wake up early. Like that. That's because that's our level of it. But we can't say, you do whole night, don't sleep at all. We are warned against something like that. Don't do something like that. So there may be a standard and there might be an institutional something, but still within that we find our place. And there is our place. I don't know if I'm missing you out totally, but
Maybe it's my fault that I'm able to.
can we have a separate conversation offline? Okay. I don't want to take too much time. Oh, Mother Premanjali. Jai.
Yes,
That would be
Haribol.
nice.
Yes. So when Krishna decides to take away our false ego, do simultaneously we give up our body because we no longer need it?
No, not necessary.
Mm.
There are other things too. Krishna decides to take away our false ego, but we also have to decide to give it up. That's usually the first level of challenge because we don't like to give it up. What? What are you doing? No. Don't touch that part. Everything else is okay. That one is very dear to me. Don't touch it. So the first part is to allow Krishna to enter areas that of false ego that we don't allow otherwise. And becoming freed of false ego doesn't have to necessarily mean free of the body also. It means that one is not identifying with that body. There are two examples. One is in Bhagvatam is given of a coconut, right? And if it said if you keep the coconut aside for a long time, then the actual pulp inside separates from the shell. Although it is still inside the fiber and the shell, it is still not connected to the shell. It's on its own. Similarly, the liberated person who's free of false ego, although maybe within the coverings of the body, is not attached to that body. And in Rupa Goswami's teachings in Nectar of Devotion, we hear Iha Yasya Harer Dasya, that a person who is fully situated in the service of Krishna by his body, mind, and words, although residing in the body, is not attached to the body, doesn't identify with the body. And like Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada was, by all sorts of demonstrations, free of that false ego, but was in that body for 81 years. Like that.
Second question would be, so there's a service that you're needed to stay. Perhaps like Prabhupada was, we needed him. So there was, instead of him going back to the spiritual world, he stayed for us.
Prahlad Maharaj, small body, but tortured like anything, but not identifying with the body. Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagvatam ki jai. Long class. way, so I don't want to go there.